Traditionally, support staff in IT departments deploy apps to users' devices. This means that the app is physically present on a user device, but you can also make apps available by using remote desktop services. RemoteApp in Windows Server 2016 enables you to publish apps to users' devices. These apps are presented as if they're installed locally, but they actually run on the RemoteApp server. There are a number of advantages to using RemoteApp apps. These include supporting branch offices where there is limited IT support, enabling users that want to access programs remotely, enabling you to deploy your line of business applications across device types and architectures, supporting hot desking workspaces, enabling you to deploy multiple versions of an app. On your Windows Server 2016 server computer, you must first of all install the RD Session Host role service. Then you must install the apps. The Windows Server running the RDS role must have the following services configured and available: the RD Session Host, the RD Virtualization Host, RD Web Access, RD Licensing, RD Gateway, and RD Connection Broker. The process for installing the RD Session Host role service is fairly straightforward. On your Windows Server 2016 server computer, in Server Manager, select Add Roles and Features. On the Installation Type page, click Remote Desktop Services Installation. On the Select Deployment Type page, click Quick Start. Choose Session-Based Desktop Deployment. Complete the wizard, and when prompted, click Deploy. Restart your server computer and then sign in. Once you've signed in, configuration completes without further intervention. Once you've installed the Remote Desktop Session Host, you can install apps on the server. You do this through Control Panel. Click Programs, and then on the Programs page, click Install Application on Remote Desktop. Click through the wizard to install your desktop app in the usual way, and then, when the app is installed, in the Finish Admin Install dialog box, click Finish. Once you've installed the apps that you want to make available, you must publish them. Use the following procedure. In Server Manager, select Remote Desktop Services. In the Remote Desktop Services window, click the Quick Session Collection node. In the Remote App Programs section, click Tasks and then click Publish Remote App Programs. Select the app that you just installed and on the confirmation page, click Publish. The newly published app is displayed in the Remote App Programs list. Next, you can configure Remote App and Desktop Connection settings. This enables you to provide specific remote apps to users. Remote App and Desktop Connections is enabled by default on Windows 10 computers. But to access these settings, click Start and type Remote App and Desktop Connections. Click the Remote App and Desktop Connections icon. Click Access Remote App and Desktops. In the Access Remote App and Desktops wizard, enter the connection URL to the server that hosts the apps. Click through the wizard to complete the process. To subscribe to additional Desktop Connections feed, use the following procedure. In Control Panel, open the Remote App and Desktop Connections window. Click Access Remote App and Desktops. Type the URL for the appropriate connection. Click through the wizard, and after the connection is set up, make a note of the name of the connection. To access the connection, from Start, type Remote App and Desktop Connections, click Remote App and Desktop Connections, and then click the name of the connection. The programs and remote desktops that are available as part of that connection are listed under the connection name. Click the program or remote desktop that you'd like to use. To access Remote App and Desktop Connections, click Start, and you should see, under Recently Added, with the suffix of Work Resources, all of the Remote App apps. In Control Panel, under Remote App and Desktop Connections, you can also take a look at the connections You can see that you're connected, you can see that they've been updated, you can see the date they were created, and you can reconfigure the work resources that are listed. Remote app programs are typically digitally signed. To ensure that users can access remote app programs that are digitally signed, you must configure client computers to recognize programs as coming from a trusted publisher by using group policy settings. The following group policy settings allow you to control the behavior of client computers when opening digitally signed RDP files from a remote app. In the Computer Configuration, Policies, Administrative Templates, Windows Components, Remote Desktop Services, Remote Desktop Connection Client node, you can configure the following 3 values. In the demonstration, I'll show you how to configure remote app and desktop connection settings and how to subscribe to the desktop connections feeds. So I'm on my server here in Server Manager. Let's click Add Roles and Features. Click Next. Choose Remote Desktop Services Installation. You can choose between a standard deployment, which allows you to deploy remote desktop services across multiple servers, a quick start, which allows you to deploy remote desktop services on a single server and creates a collection and publishes remote app programs, or a multi-point service deployment, which allows you to easily create stations for multiple users using inexpensive USB hubs or zero-client devices. Since I have a single server, I'm going to choose Quick Start. You can now choose between virtual machine-based desktop deployment and session-based desktop deployment. With the former, this option allows your users to connect to virtual desktop collections that include published remote app programs and virtual desktops. In this configuration, each user is assigned their own virtual machine. With session-based desktop deployment, the option allows your users to connect to session collections which include published remote app programs and session-based desktops. In this scenario, each user is assigned a session within a virtual machine or physical host. I now need to specify the particular server I want to deploy the roles to. Quick Start, as you can see, will install the RD Connection Broker, RD Web Access and RD Session Host role services on the same server. Just a warning here that the server will be restarted, that's fine. And I'm happy with that. I can click Deploy. The computer will restart at one point and then configure updates. After the restart, the computer continues configuring. Okay, so installation has completed. You can also see down here in the View Progress dialog box the URL for connecting to RD Web Access. It's worth making a note of that. So click Close, and if we click on Remote Desktop Services and then click on Quick Session Collection, you can see that everything is configured as it should be. There are already some remote app programs available. These are things like Calculator, Paint and WordPad, but we need to publish some additional line of business apps. I've got one for test purposes, which I'll show you how to publish right now. So I'm going to open up Control Panel. And then click Programs, and then Install Application on Remote Desktop. So we're now in RD install mode, and we just launched the setup program for the application I want to make available in the usual way. I've placed an application in Downloads, XML Notepad. It's a short installation routine. And then when I click Next, it will launch the installation program for XML Notepad within the context of the RD installer. Okay, there it is. So click Next, accept the license terms, and then to click through the wizard to install this particular program. That's now done. And then it's launching something about XML Notepad setup in Internet Explorer. I don't need to look at that, so to click OK and close that down. And then when I've finished installing the application in RD install mode, I click Finish. So the application is now available for me to publish. Let's take a look at that process. Okay, so switch back to Server Manager and click in Quick Session Collection, Tasks, Publish Remote App Programs. It retrieves a list of available remote app programs. There's the list. You can see a lot of these are default programs that we can make available automatically. We haven't had to install them, they're there already. But there's my XML Notepad. I can select that and then click Next. And then when I'm ready, publish. Okay, that's now finished, so click Close, and you can see that in addition to the 3 default remote app programs, we've also now got XML Notepad. So the next step is to configure the client computer. Let's switch to our client computer. Okay, and I'm signed in as Claire as a standard user on a Windows 10 computer. So the first thing to do is to click Start, type Remote App and Desktop Connections, and then click the link to open that in Control Panel. Click Access Remote App and Desktops, and then enter the URL. It's not actually case sensitive, but I'm typing it that way so that it looks clearer for you. And then click Next, and then Next, and it will add connection resources. Okay, so that's successfully completed. You can see that there are programs available, 4. There are no remote desktops available. That's the connection URL there, and if I click Finish, we can see the work resources and view the properties again here. If there are any updates, we can force an update, but otherwise that will take place periodically. And then I should find, if I click on Start, that my work resources are listed at the top of the Start list. And there they are. We've got Paint, Calculator, we've also got WordPad, but the one that we set up was XML Notepad. So I can run one of these. If I click on Calculator, it establishes a remote app session. There we are, then we've got Calculator running, and as far as we're concerned, it appears to be running normally and locally, but in fact it's running on the server. If we switch to the server, we can actually take a look at that. Here in the Quick Session Collection, we've got a user Claire, and we can see that there's a connection established for her. In the demonstration, you saw how to configure remote app and desktop connection settings, and also how to subscribe to the desktop connections feeds.